like not get caught by them. And you can see how as I walk past, they start to chase me, and I just kind of like Scooby-Doo run away. So yeah, that's the idea. That's what we're trying to learn here. So I hope you enjoyed. Okay, everyone. Hi. In this video, I want to show you something about using approach and if you can create a monster awareness distance, or something that only when you're at a certain distance from an event, it would trigger. In this case, I'm going to make an example with a monster and show you what I'm talking about. So let me just quickly go ahead and create a monster. It's going to be approaching us. So we set it to approach very fast. And the moment it finds us, let's do an event touch. It will say some words. Monster would say, gotcha. And where is my monster? It's here. And let's just say that once it catches us, it will, just go do something else. So create a cell switch. We go to the next page, and the monster now is just standing still. So recap, it's approaching us. When it touches us, it would say gotcha, and then it will switch to this, and this is nothing. So let's just play this out. Let's see what happens if we play this out real quick. Okay, we can see that it's coming for us, even though we're pretty far away. And yep, now we can leave, and that's it. Okay, this is what we expected, but even if you were like very far away from each other, let's just make it a bit faster so we don't have to wait. We take a look at this again, and obviously the monster can still find us very quickly. So that's not so fun, because let's say you're creating a dungeon and you want the monster to exist somewhere. If it's immediately chasing you the moment you kick in, that can be what you want, but maybe you want it to only see you after a certain point. So the whole point of what we're going to do now is, can we define some distance? Maybe, let's say when we're less than 4 tiles away, only then we should see each other, and more than that we shouldn't see each other, right? And this could be also 4 tiles like this, or it could also be some diagonally, so we can define a distance. So let's just quickly recap what that means with math, because we need to do the math, right? So we're gonna need to know the distance d. We're gonna need to the player coordinates. We need to have like the event that the monster is, and of course the event coordinates. We're gonna have to calculate the distance between these two, and then if the distance is less than this awareness distance, just now we were saying 4 squares, then something should happen, right? In this case, the monster should come alive. So to understand a bit more of this, we need to take a quick look at Pythagoras theorem. Yes, math. So take a quick look at this. What you see here is that we have a formula, and maybe this distance formula is the example we want to see. And A and B represent our player and our monster. So we just defined distance by this, right? It's like the square root of one minus the other squared. Just a quick explanation if you don't know this, if you've never seen this before, what you need to know is that this is the difference between one and the other, and you need to square them, because if you were to switch them, this number suddenly is negative, distance should not be negative. So squaring them gets rid of that issue and makes it symmetrical. And same for if x is horizontal, this is vertical, and then you can apply square root. But you don't need to, because you could also just square on both sides, and you have d squared equals this stuff square. And that is Pythagoras theorem. So coming back to our little scenario here, we will need to use script. And for this, we need to access the variables, and we'll need to use this coding in JavaScript. So if you never coded in JavaScript, well, we're gonna do it now. We're gonna try to keep it very simple. Again, this is the kind of stuff that has been done a lot on the internet. You can ask ChatGPT or any other LLM, and they probably will give you very good answers. I'll just try to keep it simple and explain what I'm doing, so you can then modify this, because the whole point of coding, I think, is that you can then modify it to do what you want. So let's just say D is this distance, and let's say it has to be 4 squares. Only when the distance is 4 squares, the monster should see us. Otherwise, it shouldn't see us. And that's like a bit of a short-sighted monster. Let's make it 5. Okay. Then player coordinates. Here's where we need to start looking at the variables that the RPG Maker MC offers us. So in this case, we have a variable which is called game player. And this will be everything that has to do with the actual player of the game, right? In this case, we want what? We want the X coordinate. That's it. And let's just call this player X. And this we'll use to refer ourselves to the X coordinate of the player. I can very easily copy and paste and do the same thing for Y. So now we have the horizontal and the vertical. I'm not used to using JavaScript. We need to add, we need to end with a semicolon. This is like an end of the line. So the code doesn't keep running. It will know that this is a statement and needs to execute on its own before it moves on to the next one. So always remember that when using JavaScript. Okay, so now we have the player coordinates. Now we will need the enemy coordinates. So we could check the ID, in this case is 001, but imagine you have multiple monsters. You shouldn't be tracking these IDs one by one. So what you can do is you can do what's called like a self command or a self property. And what this means is that for this event, give me the information for this event, whatever this event is. And we'll do an example of having multiple monsters later. But the idea is that I don't want to know, I don't want to memorize a number of the events. I'm just going to say, if I'm the event, do it for me. That's what it means. The way that works is that you will do this dot, and this is always calling a property or a method. In this case, the property event ID. So what is this? Well, this is the enemy ID. So whenever we talk about the enemy, we're going to be talking about this. And we are going to store this information here in enemy ID. Okay? So now we have event ID. We need to extract its coordinates. So this is a bit more tricky because we need to now go to the map and ask the map, where is this event? So we start again by calling the parent object, which is game map. And then we ask about events. And of all the events, in this case we only have one, right? But let's say you have a busy map. Which one should we call? Well, this one, right? That's the one we're talking about. So let's just copy paste that. Event ID. This one, right? But we want what? We want the X and Y variables. So dot X. And we should store this as enemy X. And if we have this stored, we can do the same thing that we did for X for Y. So let's just take a quick moment here. So we now have the coordinates X and Y for our enemy and the coordinates X and Y for our players. So we are now in a situation we can calculate the distance between these two. And how do we do that? Well, for the player, we needed to call the parent object game player and ask about its position. This one is easy. For the event, we need to ask the map, tell me about events. And which event? Well, enemy ID, that one. Okay, and what do you want to know? I want to know its coordinates. Okay, so that's how it works. So now that we have this, we should then come up with some distance between them, right? And for that, we need to use, do you remember that just now, this formula, we need to do x2 minus x1 squared. So the way we can do this in JavaScript is using math and the power operation, which is a thing like this. So we're gonna do, the order doesn't really matter. We can do enemy x minus player x, comma 2, because we're squaring it. So we're like powering it to the power of 2. So that's the x1, right? Again, we're gonna just copy and paste this. Maybe let's make this a bit wider, so it fits. Make this a bit smaller also. And so what we have here is we're doing distance, the x and x squared. This should be y and y squared, and we're adding them up. So this is no longer a distance, this is more like a squared distance. So that means that we need to compare this one. It shouldn't just be d, it actually should be something like let squared d be what? Well, this should be math.pow of d, like this. So we should compare, let's say this is measured in whatever units you want. It could be feet or meters. This should also be feet or meters. And this is, if this is like square feet or square meters, there should also be square feet or square meter. So just take a note of the units in general in life. Okay, so at this point we're comparing this distance squared with this distance squared. Why? Well, we just said that if the distance between these two entities is less than the distance we want, something should happen. So let's write now this conditional statement. So if something, so if condition stuff happens, that's how it works, right? So the condition is the squared distance is less or equal to squared d, meaning that the distance between my two entities is smaller or the same size as the distance I arbitrarily set at 5. So it means that when they're close, this will be small, and when they're very far apart, this will be big. This is always the same number. In this case will be 5 times 5, 25. Okay, what's the stuff that happens? Well, this is a bit tricky because we haven't done the logic yet, but we might want something like just flick a self switch on the monster to A. So what we will want is that this monster now, let's get rid of the stuff we have right now. Let's like delete everything. And let's just say, well, this monster should be doing just nothing, just hanging out there. But then when it goes to A, we're gonna flick a switch here. Then it should be chasing. It should be approaching aggressively. So here is where we should have this logic of, oh, gotcha, I just deleted. And but not until we flick the switch. So how we're gonna flick the switch? Well, we need to run this script, but we're not done yet. So we need to code this. So how are we gonna code this? Well, this one is a bit tricky. There's a lot of things we need to do, and don't worry, I don't memorize this kind of stuff. I'm looking at somewhere else, so I'm just gonna copy paste it and show you, just to make it easy for me and everyone watching this video. So this is the line of code. What is this? Let's try to analyze this. So we first start by talking about game self switches. This is all the self switches in the game, in the entire game, for all the maps. So not just this one, it could be anything going on in my entire game. So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna set a value. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, so we're talking self switches in my game. We're talking setting values for those. So how do I know which? Great question. So first of all, we need to say what map. Well, we're in this map right now. Then we need to say what event. Well, is this monster. And what value. What are we setting the switch to? Well, A in this case, because I said A. And you mentioned switch A for this event in this map. Are you switching it on or off? Oh, it's on. Okay. So then let's make this work. So we say what map. Well, in this case, of the game maps of the whole game, can we get the ID of the map I'm currently in? This one. So that's what this command does. Like for the maps, give me the ID of the map I'm in. Okay. Then for event, well, this one is easy because I already have it right here. This event ID. So I can just copy this guy over here. And what value? Well, I said, let's set it to self switch A. You could have said something else, but let's just go with this. So at this point, this line of code will work because we're saying what map, what event, what value, set to true. And we have said that is set true, switch A for the enemy ID that is in this map. Okay, so with all that cleared, let's get rid of this. And at this point, we have a code that if we just read it from the top, we have a distance set by us and squared value, the coordinates of the player, the ID of the enemy, in this case this event, then the coordinates of that event, then the distance between the two, right, this, and then if this distance is smaller than the fixed value, something should happen. In this case, we're gonna set the switch A on. That's what's gonna happen. And just to recap, when this one is doing nothing, when we switch it on, we will go here, and then it's gonna become an approach. So before we do anything, let's just make sure our game is running properly. Let's run it. Yeah, nothing should happen because this guy is set to fixed, right? It's set to nothing. Nothing's going on. So that's good. What we're gonna do now is we are gonna have to run this script. So I'm just gonna copy the whole thing. I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna go to script. I'm gonna paste it as is. So now, the moment the game starts, this will run. And we don't want to run this continuously because, you know, it might get the computer a bit tired. So let's just put a little wait, like once a second it's gonna check, you know, because this is 60 frames per second. So every 60 frames, that means 1 second. It's gonna check. And if the condition is true, it's gonna flick the switch for the monster. Okay? So let's take a look now. Let's make sure we're really far away. So this is definitely more than 5 squares away. Actually, let's start like this. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares between them. So if I get a little bit closer, this will activate. Let's see. Well, nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Let's try to get closer. Closer, closer. It's not working. Why? Well, that's because this is not running. This should actually be running always in parallel. So while we're moving, the monster is also running the script continuously. So why don't we try this one more time? And let's add something at the end so we know it's running. Let's say no victim on site. This poor monster, unable to find a victim. So let's try this again. No victim on site. No victim on site. Just moving around. No victim on site. Okay, let's get closer. No victim on site. Oh, gotcha. So yeah, now we're perpetually gotcha. So we can obviously try this in different angles. It works for all directions because it's both X and Y. Yep, then when I get closer, this happens. And obviously I can do it one more time and that's it. Like this. And at some point, oh yeah, that's it. So that's all well. And now with this, you get a good understanding of how to calculate distance. We did it with Pythagoras theorem, the distance formula. We applied it very well. And now we have this. Okay, just to close this off, let me just make a small change. Let's get rid of this text, very annoying. And we're gonna do a little tease on RPG Maker MC just to show you that not everything is perfect. So we know that when we get around here, we should definitely trigger this monster. Let's see if our very difficult to overcome wall confuses it. Well, don't worry, this has been solved by other people. I'll put the link in the description so you can see what this other YouTuber has solved actually some years ago. And it builds on the whole analysis of the variables I just shared here. So if you manage to follow all this, you have no issue understanding the explanation that this other YouTuber is giving. That is very good also. Okay, so now let's try to enjoy this thing we just created with so much effort. Let's make some changes. Let's make this monster actually a bit slower, so we have some chance to, you know, walk away. Make some copies. In fact, let's change the skin so it looks a bit different. And we know, make some copies of this one too. And yeah, let's just change it one more time so we have some variety. And we're gonna try to see how this works. So now that the monsters are a bit slower, I should be able to like not get caught by them. And you can see how as I walk past, they start to chase me and I just kind of like Scooby-Doo run away. So yeah, that's the idea. That's what we're trying to learn here. So I hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.